are to live our lives, over against our own opinions, our own prejudices, our own biases, then we'll never do anything at the right time. Mm-hmm. Ours will never be the right place. And we'll have many reasons, but none of them will be the right one. Let's continue reading on. Therefore his sisters, we're at verse 3, sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified. Now let's skip to verse 6. When he heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that saith he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples said unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest in sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, doubting Thomas, unto his fellow disciples, Let us go also, that we may die with him. Talk about your wah-wah moments. Let us go also, that we may die with him. Just missed the point. The right time. Jesus could have gone as soon as the emissaries from Martha and Mary's house came to alert him that Lazarus was sick. But he said, no, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. They didn't yet understand that even if Lazarus died, the glory of God would be revealed in this, the last miracle in John's Gospel, where he summoned the dead back to life again. But what is really important is the disciples' response, where Jesus looks back toward Judea and says, we've got to go back there. And the disciples are worried about Jesus, worried about Jesus being stoned. And they're really not worried about Jesus being stoned. They're really worried about their own safety. They're really worried about what will happen if Jesus dies and everything they've pledged their lives to and for looks like it's a failure. They're worried at the lack of vindication that might arise from Jesus turning back to Jerusalem. And how often do we make the same mistake? We view Jesus as a cosigner. We have our issues that pop up as they're wont to do whenever they want. And because they're happening to us, that's what we deem to be important. And we don't want to wait. We want them to be handled right now. Or if there's an important issue that's come up in our families, in our fellowship, we want them to be handled right then and there, right now. Such is our desire for them to be handled right then. We want God to be with us, but we lack the desire to go with God. You know, and it's very important that we catch that distinction, because oftentimes we pray that God be with us in order to validate our beliefs, in order to substantiate our biases, in order to reify our prejudices and our stupid fears. But our prayer should rather be, and we should pray it humbly, that we are with God. You see, this is how we should understand the 3 Hebrew boys in the furnace. It wasn't so much that God co-signed but that they had already declared how fully they were with God. Nebuchadnezzar had erected the huge gold image and had beckoned all to bow down before it, to give in to the idolatry of Babylon. But the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, said, no. Maybe God will save us and maybe he won't, but we will not submit ourselves to your God. We must be with God, if it means our lives or if it means our deaths. And it's that declaration that allowed the Son of God to join them in the fire, such that they arose out of the fire.
Thank you.
Without the slightest bit of sin.
Thank you.
Nor smelling of smoke. Daniel 2, a little after Daniel chapter 3, in Daniel 6, made the same declaration. I must be with God. And so as we think about this, let's meditate on the ways in which we've gone ahead of God throughout the week. And we've compartmentalized our lives such that God only has reign or lordship over the big things. And the little things, well, we can take care of that. And we just need you, Lord, to put your seal of approval on that. The right time. Jesus, though he had the power to heal Lazarus with a single word, tarried 4 days because it wasn't time yet. It wasn't time. Such was his submission and obedience to the will of the Father that even though he loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, said, Lord, you have a plan, and I must submit myself to it. I can't move one foot to the front or 1 foot to the back without seeking your counsel. So when it was time, he moved. Because he was fully with God. He moved even in the face of his disciples' unbelief, even in the face of his disciples' fear, even in the face of their lust for self-vindication, even in the midst of their not understanding the revelatory force of what was about to happen. He moved to Bethany. And he didn't go to Lazarus' house. He went to the tomb. That was the right place. He didn't go to the house, but he met or first encountered Martha and later Mary at the place of impossibility.
Thank you.
At the place of impossibility, because though Martha thought that Jesus' ability to raise Lazarus only referred to the Last Judgment and not to his status as Christ. And though Mary was overtaken in the throes of great grief, Jesus had a job to do. And he met them at the place of impossibility, at the place of death. Because he was on an errand from the Creator who calls nothing or something out of nothing. He was on an errand of the Creator, the same Creator who quickened Sarah's dead womb and allowed Abraham to give birth to a son, though he be 100 years old. He was on an errand of the same God who, in the face of Job's tremendous trial, gave him double for his trouble at the end, and much more than he ever had. It is the same God who caused Ezekiel to ask, can these bones live again? The right place was to meet Mary and Martha and all those gathered there at the place of impossibility. And this is where we are now.